Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, Odell Beckham, Kanye West, Eminem, Pete Davidson, and this guy? How are they all connected and how can you be banking off of it? Don't worry, we'll get to it, but first we just need to rewind real quick. So Joe Burrow began his NFL career already on top of the football world after having shattered yardage and touchdown records at LSU and capping the year off with a Heisman Trophy and a national championship, whooping Trevor Lawrence's ass, whooping Clemson's ass. He then had to turn around a franchise which had largely struggled for most of the past 2 decades with a, to put it nicely, below average team around him on offense. His rookie season was somewhat challenging, and then to cap it off in week 11, Burrow tore his ACL, putting an early end to his first year in the NFL and presenting a long road to recovery. But whatever Burrow did during the offseason to rehab from his ACL tear, it worked. Because in his second year, he was amazing. One of the best quarterbacks in the league. The Bengals adding Burrow's former LSU teammate, Jamar Chase, in the draft certainly didn't hurt either because he was one of the best receivers in the NFL right off the bat. But Burrow finished the season with 4,600 yards through the air, 34 passing touchdowns. And if that wasn't enough of a leap in his second season, he decided to follow up the regular season by putting on one of the best playoff stretches in recent memory. Sure, I mean in the wild card round, he beats the Raiders at home, big whoop, nobody's impressed by that. Then he follows it up with a tough 19-16 win in Tennessee against Mike Vrabel, Derrick Henry and company. And after that, as we all know, he famously marches into Arrowhead Stadium against the dynamic duo of Brittany and Patrick Mahomes, and the guy wins the game. I remember going into that game, I said, Patrick Mahomes is not beating Joe Burrow in a game of football.
I don't know what made me say that, and my friends was with me, and they was like, okay.
And I was right. He led the Bengals to the biggest championship game comeback in NFL history. Guy was down 21-3 in the first half. Then bang, 41-yard touchdown pass to Samaje Perine, little 2-yard touchdown to Jamar Chase, and a couple field goals later, and he's headed to the Super Bowl, where unfortunately he has to go against Aaron Donald with one of the worst offensive lines in the league. Not exactly a winning formula. And as expected, Joe Burrow got beaten up in that game by Aaron Donald and Von Miller, who combined for 4 sacks. The Rams had 7 total sacks in the game. So even with a bullshit free T. Higgins touchdown, where offensive pass interference was not called on him against Jalen Ramsey, the Bengals lost in heartbreaking fashion, 23-20, thanks to poor pass protection and Matthew Stafford just being an absolute baller. So yeah, while all in all it was a season to be proud of for the Bengals, they came up just short of a Super Bowl, I'm sure leaving Joe Burrow nothing but unsatisfied with that ending. And the pain, of course, is not just in the loss itself, but the aftermath. Losing hurts, and losing hurts that much more when you're on the biggest stage, one step away from being a Super Bowl champion, and coming up just short. A helpless feeling. And the Super Bowl loss was actually the beginning of hard times that have not ended since then. I mean, the next season, the Bengals went 12-4. That's great. Burrow had another monster season passing, 4,500 yards, 40 total touchdowns. Then they go into the playoffs, easy dub against Lamar. He's never winning anything. Go into Buffalo, ragdoll Josh Allen. But then they gotta go face Brittany and Patrick for a second time in Arrowhead. And once again, I said Patrick Mahomes is not beating Joe Burrow in a game of football. And I was wrong. Big L, 23-20. Sent home. Now, fast forward to the 2023 season. This was just a complete injury-riddled, catastrophic, losing mess of a season. And I think this is the beginning of what really started to piss Joe Burrow off. Because he started the season by straining his calf in the preseason, then aggravating the injury in week 2, playing as a worse version of himself through the first month of the season. And then when it seems like he's finally recovered, because he was absolutely going off from week 5 until week 11, he goes ahead and injures his wrist and gets ruled out for the rest of the season, and the Bengals didn't come close to making the playoffs. So here's where we get to the fun part. As you may or may not have seen, Joe Burrow showed up to the start of training camp with a nice new little hairstyle, shaved head, bleached blonde hair, going from Anakin Skywalker to looking like Eminem and Cody Rhodes had a baby. You might have thought, well, okay, just Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow, he's a somewhat unusual kind of guy. But the bleached blonde hair may be a sign that something much bigger is about to happen. Don't worry, We'll get to that. But first, I just need to give you some background. This is going to be a quick story about a musician, but bear with me because it will all make sense in the end. So, Robert Johnson was a musician in the 1930s. He lived on a plantation in rural Mississippi and badly wanted to become a famous blues musician. There was only one problem, which was the fact that he sucked at guitar. He wasn't a good musician at all. So as legend has it, he was instructed to take himself and his guitar to a nearby crossroad where he was to meet the devil himself, cut a deal with him by selling his soul in exchange for mastery of the guitar, and then ultimately the fame and fortune in which he so desired would be his. Basically, Robert Johnson sucked at his instrument, went away, and then 6 months later was insanely gifted, when in reality there's no way you could ever improve your motor skills on an instrument that much in such a short span of time. So he sold his soul to the devil and got a magical gift in return. I bring that story up because it's one of the first modern stories of selling your soul for a gift or an achievement, fortune, fame, whatever. And music has always been the most prevalent example of this, going back to the mid-1900s. But many would argue that within the past couple of decades, it spilled over into sports as well. Kobe Bryant's book literally talks about black magic. Kobe Bryant's the Black Mamba. I don't think there's any athlete in history with more symbolism tied to him than Kobe Bryant. On top of that, A-list celebrities have been known to bleach their hair directly before or after significant events in their life. Kanye West literally said, "I bleach my hair after every time I could have died." Some might think that's a figure of speech, not necessarily. Eminem bleaches his hair, then goes on to take over pop culture for the better part of a decade. Pete Davidson bleaches his hair. Think of all the absolute top of the food chain elite celebrities he's dated. Odell Beckham, bleached hair, biggest celebrity in the NFL for a period of time before his body breaks down. And then most similar to Joe Burrow, many may forget, Tom Brady bleached his hair going into the 2014-15 NFL season. He was going on a decade without a Super Bowl win, and then voila, wins the 2015 Super Bowl against the Seahawks, and then goes on another monster career run, 4 Super Bowls in the next 7 seasons. So the basic idea with the bleached hair is it is a public way for somebody who cut a deal, so to speak, to announce that they are in the program that they're in. They are now a puppet. It's almost like rebirth out of the cocoon. You're a new man, a resurrection. Just as heroes in mythology undergo a physical metamorphosis, it's a non-verbal cue to, shall I say, certain people that we are one of a kind. The bleached hair, black eye, Pete Davidson, again, great example. So why are some theorizing that Joe Burrow could be headed down the same path? Well, to begin with, he's been taking 50 sacks a game for practically his entire career, getting demolished by defensive linemen week in, week out. So would you even blame him for selling his soul to the devil? I wouldn't. And after getting a taste of the Super Bowl glory, coming up just short, the case may be that Burrow is looking to do whatever it takes to get the edge that he needs. He saw Tom Brady in his late 30s go back to looking like just a different human being. He might be asking himself, what is Mahomes doing? What did Belichick have to do? What's the secret? Don't think it's TB12. What's their edge? So basically, this is Joe Burrow's proverbial crossroads moment. In exchange for selling out, he's hoping he will be granted the ultimate reward, a spot at the tippity top of the NFL universe, a Super Bowl win, his bleached blonde hair granting him a trip to the promised land. So finally, you may be asking, how do you bank off of this? Well, pretty simple. If you believe in this theory that I just laid out, completely objectively and unbiased, of course, then after you like, comment, subscribe, you might want to hop on to FanDuel or DraftKings or whatever your degenerate gambling platform of choice is. Check out the odds for the Bengals winning the AFC North, Bengals winning the AFC Championship, Bengals winning the Super Bowl. Then look out Joe Burrow props, yardage, touchdowns, MVP odds. Put everything you own on them and simply profit.